Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy. Yes, we're bringing back the OG intro because I think it was just better, and we are not far off the big new games this year, and therefore also my transition to some of those games, and probably for you guys as well, a lot of you. I suspect a good deal of you are already looking at Call of Duty Modern Warfare thinking, that has some of the stuff that I'm looking for. Whereas some of you are going to stick around on Battlefield 5, maybe because you already enjoy it, or maybe because you're hoping for better in the future. But the at least partial transition away, at least for me, has been necessitated by the state of the Battlefield franchise at present, and what that means for viewership on YouTube, as well as just my enjoyment when playing games. So it seems like a great time to talk about what we've learned from Battlefield 5, what we hope DICE and EA have learned, what you'd like to see from the next Battlefield title, and whether it's likely to be worth it for you. What you should be looking out for between now and its eventual release as clues, plus the developers do check forums, videos and such like for community feeling, so this is an opportunity for you to state in the comments below what changes and additions you'd like to see, a chance for you to try to have a positive impact. And I'm gonna back this whole thing with footage from Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1, which seems apt as it represents how quickly things can change. An extremely successful game in Battlefield 1, and then what a lot of people deem to be the mess that is the current release in Battlefield 5. So I don't think many Battlefield fans or developers imagine being here a year ago, let's say, or where we are right now. Because a year ago we were in Battlefield 1, and although interest in it had died off, I guess pretty massively, it was at the end of its life cycle after all, it had been a successful game. It had had a massive launch which had really grabbed the attention of the wider gaming community in ways that we hadn't seen for a very long time, where Battlefield is concerned, and there was talk that it might end up being an even bigger titan of the first-person shooter genre. It looked like it was going to be hard to mess up that momentum, but we know what happened. Battlefield 5 has been a massive hit to this franchise, its reputation, and its overall standing within that wider gaming community now. It's gone from having momentum to people now considering it with somewhat derision. But let's not get it twisted, Battlefield 6 could pull this all back. A good game is a good game after all. That's all that really matters to most consumers. Essentially a lot of the time, all is forgiven if the current game is good, just like all the good stuff is generally forgotten if the current game is bad, which is kind of where we are now with a lot of people for Battlefield 5. It does go both ways. But Battlefield 6 could also be the death knell for this franchise if they have another outing like this one. There's only so much that the customer will put up with, especially when you're waiting for a new title for 2 or 3 years. That's a long time to deal with something that you're not particularly happy with. And the success of Battlefield 6 may also depend on how COD Modern Warfare goes, or what it does to the overall COD franchise. Because we are seeing a lot of Battlefield-esque things in Call of Duty, and that has a lot of people very excited, but we also don't know if that's going to be implemented well, and if that game will be successful, but it's something to consider. There is also the fact that a precedent has been set from Battlefield Hardline to Battlefield 1. Now the rose-tinted glasses do always come out once a title has passed by, and that has somewhat happened with Battlefield Hardline, but I think a lot of the overall feeling these days is that that game was actually decent. It wasn't as bad as people said, and that there were some things that some people really liked about it actually. But it was not held in high regard while it was the main title for Battlefield, and then came BF1, because while Battlefield 1 had lots of problems, it overall was pretty much undeniably a massive success, and brought a lot of Battlefield fans back to the franchise, as well as grabbing a lot of new players. Now it could be seen as that being the start of the downfall of Battlefield, because then it became muddled, it didn't know what its identity was anymore, and didn't know who it was aiming at going forwards for a target market, but that's a different issue entirely. All I'm saying at the minute is that Battlefield 1 came after Battlefield Hardline, and appears to have been a large step forwards in terms of how the franchise is regarded, showing that Battlefield 6 could potentially do the same, although there is the dampener that developers cycle in and out of these studios, so you may not have a lot of the people that actually made what was good in Battlefield 1 anymore. It's a very complex issue. Now in terms of just Battlefield 5, I think it's too late for this game to recover at a point when it's going to actually be relevant. It may do a Battlefield 4 where at some point it reaches a good state and gets somewhat of a cult following after the fact, but I think we're too far gone with Battlefield 5. BF4 didn't have as much to compete with, standards weren't as high, we're in 2019 and Battlefield 5 is in a state that just isn't acceptable at all. I mean, we still don't have Conquest on one of the new maps, there's all these bugs, I'm not going to go into it too much. But the point is, I don't think this game is going to get to where it needs to be in time to compete with these new games coming out. I think it's going to be left behind, which makes it more difficult for Battlefield 6. I think you can see how I'm trying to tie that all together there. So for Battlefield 6 to be worthwhile, it needs to be released when it's ready and no earlier. There was a bit of a delay with Battlefield 5, but we now found out that they needed way way more time. It looks like this game came out far earlier than initially planned, and it's absolutely suffered because of it. That can't happen again. DICE, EA, whoever's to blame, that can't happen again. Otherwise, Battlefield 6 probably won't be worthwhile to you. And this is probably where I should make the obvious point. I guess it doesn't really need saying, but I'll include it. If you want to be really safe with Battlefield 6, and really any game, but especially a Battlefield game these days, you probably shouldn't pre-order, and you probably shouldn't buy it when it first releases. You're gonna need to see how it pans out. You need to see if there's lots of bugs, you need to see what the content plan is, you need to see how the devs handle updates, all that kind of stuff. And the way that a lot of those potential problems can be mitigated is with the game coming out when it's ready, then people will see that it's good and they will buy the game. They must also decide on an overall ethos and plan for the game, something coherent and consistent. With Battlefield 5, we've seen a split between is it casual or is it pretty hardcore? Is it for the old fans or the new fans? Do you want gameplay or do you want realism? You can have elements of all of them, but it can't be a complete split. It seems like right now the community doesn't know what the game is trying to be, and quite honestly, it looks like the devs don't know what it's supposed to be. It's trying to be all things to all people, and that doesn't work, because then it can't actually take any of them to their max potential, because they're counterintuitive. And a big thing is, what setting is it going to be? Some people want another modern Battlefield. Some people want a continuation of a series like Bad Company. Some people want a remaster like Battlefield 3. Decide what it's going to be. Don't try to be all things to all people in this regard as well. Let people know and execute it well. Then you guys can decide if it's what you want or not. That's going to help you decide very early on whether it's something for you again or not. If it looks like being something like Battlefield 5 or whatever, then maybe you don't want to get it, or maybe you do. If it looks like they're going back to their roots and making it more like Battlefield 3, then you can decide if that's for you or not. And there are lots of signs for you to look out for between now and then, and especially in the run-up to the game being released when they start to put out information. The first reveal trailer will be a massive one. The first thing we see of this game really sets the tone for what's going to happen in the future. You may say, well, how can a cinematic trailer really tell you too much about the game? And I get that because it's usually not gameplay focused, but compare what we got in Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 5. We know that a lot of what was in those reflected how the game panned out. Battlefield 1 went for spectacle, it went for atmosphere, it went for visceral action. Battlefield 5 went for something more, I don't know how to describe it, kind of more narrative driven. Some people call it SJW stuff. I mean, I don't know. It was definitely different, very different, and it didn't connect with the Battlefield audience in the way that I'm sure DICE wanted it to. Now, I was someone that defended it, well, not defended it, but when it came out, I said, look, this might not be as bad as we think. But even I can see the massive issues that trailer had now that we've had the information that came after it. It really did represent a lot of the problems that we have had. And you can really learn something from that when you get to see it. Then I want you to look out for what the devs are actually saying after that. Don't just lap it up and see everything as being great. Actually listen to what they're saying. Try to pick out what their vision is. Is it going to be realistic? Is it going to be fun? Is it clear what they're trying to provide or not? Are you getting actual useful answers, or are you just getting corporate jargon? I want you to listen out for, between now and its release, whenever that is, in a year, 2 years, whatever it is, do DICE go on to acknowledge the mistakes they've made? Do they show signs that things are going to change or not? Because I think they need a real culture shift over there for Battlefield 6 to actually be successful. If that doesn't happen, then we may well get another problem just like Battlefield 5. Within the trailers or the early gameplay, I want you to look for visibility issues. I want you to look for if there's lens flares, if there's contrast issues, if there's lots of things covering being able to see the enemy. If you look at it and you think there's a problem there, then listen out for if there's spotting or not. I know a lot of people like spotting and a lot of people don't like spotting, but if the visibility looks bad and you don't like that, then you want to hear that there's spotting. If you like to use camouflage and such like, then you want to hear that there's not spotting. Then listen out for what their content plan is. Battlefield 5's content plan has been a mess. It's been pretty awful. There have been delays. There's been a lack of actual content. There's been content not working. There's been a real sense of people not actually knowing what the content plan is. Are they going to go for a Tides of War thing again? If they are, then for a lot of you, it should just be a hard pass, to be honest with you. I think most people aren't happy with the Tides of War. They're not happy with the rewards. They're not happy with the actual maps and how frequently they come out. Basically, the Tides of War is just a dressed up, standard plan for content release, just done badly. Are they going to go back to premium? That has its downsides as well. What are they going to do? Are they nailing down how often they're going to give you stuff, and does it compare to the previous titles? I know that we saw a lot more maps in previous Battlefield Battlefield titles than we've had in this one so far. Then look out for if they grab onto the customization stuff, because for example, in the Call of Duty Modern Warfare trailers and in the gameplay, we've seen massive customization, and that's got a lot of people hyped, not least the Battlefield community. It's something that Battlefield should really be leaning into, and I don't know why it's moved away from it. Give people attachments and customization, give people things to grind for, give people a feeling of using their own gun. If that looks like something they're going to be doing, then that's a good sign for most people. If not, then it's probably a turn off for most people. That might include you. Also, try to work out which Battlefield audience they're aiming for, and if it's yours. Are they going full on casual? Are they going full on veteran Battlefield player? Or trying to go somewhere in between? If they're going somewhere in between, then it can work out, but if they try and go dead down the middle again, it's going to be a horror show probably. And then a few other little things, I'm not going to go into vast detail about these, but look out for if there's some kind of prone meta or some kind of stationary or passive meta. If that's something you like, then good, but for most people, that's going to be really bad. So look in the trailers and the gameplay if there's MMGs, how prevalent bipods are, all that kind of stuff. Personally, I hope that the bipod meta doesn't return. You can have bipods, but don't make it how it is now, and don't ever bring back something like MMGs. You may like MMGs, but the vast majority of the player base doesn't, and it's being one of the reasons why some people have stopped playing. Battlefield 6 is more likely to be worth it for more people if there aren't things like MMGs in the game. Try to listen out for what they're saying about servers. For example, the UK lost its servers this time, which was a big deal for people like me. And also listen out to what they're saying about private servers, because no private servers or RSP or whatever you're going to call it has been really bad for a section of the player base in this game, and it's something we still actually don't have. Then if you like hardcore, listen out for that, obviously. That's something that hasn't made its way to Battlefield 5, at least not so far, and it looks unlikely to get here. So that's a big one for some of you guys. And what do they say about progression and ranking systems, because it's been really bad in this game? Are they going to go back to something worthwhile, which will keep people playing? And my final point is, what do they say about the modes? Are they going to have a few modes which they're going to really nail down, or are they going to come out with loads of them which are going to split the player base and I'll have to remove some of them later on, which will disappoint the people that played those modes? And then with that covered, please tell me, yes, I'm drawing to a close the video, please tell me what you would specifically like to see. Not just for me because I find it interesting, although I will read it, but also for everybody out there watching, see if there are people that agree with them or disagree with them. You can have discussions down there about it, and if any developers ever come across this video to try to get feedback, they can read what you have said. This is another way for you to have an impact on top of being on Twitter, in the forums, all that kind of stuff. And so I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, turning on notifications takes no effort and I'd really appreciate it, as well as also liking, subscribing and joining my Discord server in the description and my pinned comment. Also, follow me on Mixer. The link to that will be in the description as well, but it's mixer.com/GetGoodGuy. I'm going to be streaming there a lot soon, including Facecam and all that jobbly goodness. That was a weird sentence, but as usual, I'm gonna keep it in. Here's the Board of Awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes, and I love them all deeply and of course, often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I will see you next time. Laters.